What's going on, guys? This is Rob. If you guys enjoy my content, make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that little bell so you never miss out on my sexy voice. What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and a few weeks ago, or really about a week and a half ago, something like that, Warner Brothers flew myself and Comicstorian and Dan T. Editor and J-Roar and Uncaged Games and Caboose and all these guys flew us all out to Los Angeles, and we got to check out the DC Lego Supervillains game, which is coming out October 16th, and it was pretty awesome, actually. It was really, really enjoyable. The character selection screen is what you're looking at right now, which is actually pretty fun to go through. There's a lot of options here. There's a lot of choices, a lot of things that you can do and tinker around and have a great time. Certainly a game that I'm looking forward to seeing. But I figured I'd go ahead and let you guys know that it was an awesome experience. I'm sure you guys are probably going to buy it anyway, because it's a Lego game and those games are always fun. But yeah, be on the lookout. October 16th, that's when the game drops. Make sure you guys go and buy it. Okay, so we're getting into Infinity Wars, really Infinity Wars Part 2. This is basically coming off the heels of Gamora capturing the Infinity Stones, which is kind of weird. The idea that Gamora was basically a character called Requiem who killed Thanos. Honestly, I felt like it was way too early for a reveal. I'm not really sure why Jerry Dugan decided to drop the reveal so fast, but I don't know, maybe there's other crazy stuff in store. The only thing I can surmise here is that Avengers 4 is going to end with Gamora taking out Thanos, and so it was more like an editorial mandate, because we know like Marvel is kind of adjusting the comics to copy the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so it's kind of interesting. But the fact remains here that what this does is kind of pick up with the past a little bit. And it really kind of gives us this continual journey with regards to Gamora's character. Remember, she's part of a race called the Zinwoberis, and her people were wiped out by another group. I think it was oh God, what was it? It starts with a B, the Badoon? I can't remember off the top of my head. Anyway, it's when she was an adult, she went back and wiped out the people who wiped out her people. So when she was younger, of course, Thanos taking her under his wing really taught her to be pretty hardcore. I mean, basically helped to turn her into one of the universe's most, prodigious assassins, really the most dangerous woman in the universe. But one of the things that Thanos talks about here, and this is kind of interesting, one of the things he talks about here is the idea that basically everything ends, that everything will die at some point or another. And he really follows this ideology that only the strongest lives survive. Now, this is kind of uncharacteristic of Thanos' character. And the reason why I say that is right now in Marvel Comics in the present day, Thanos has kind of abandoned the idea of Mistress Death, right? He walked away from that and said she's basically a lost cause and said he didn't want to have anything to do with it. But then, when you go back and you look at Thanos in the past, he was very much enamored with Mistress Death. And so it wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense for him to adopt this mentality that only the strong deserve to survive, because the governing factor of Thanos and everything he did was attaining the affections of Mistress Death. And so it would make more sense here if he said, well, I killed him to please Mistress Death, because Death likes the sacrifice of life, or life is meaningless because of course he's a nihilist or something along those lines. But he doesn't really say that. He just kind of hints to an extreme social Darwinist perspective that only the strong deserve to survive. And it's kind of a funny thing because Gamora responds by saying, well, if that's true, then the time will come when you will die. You told me as much, but somebody will kill you. And Thanos recognizes it and says, yes, that's the nature of things. The universe is grooming someone to take me out. So again, it's not really characteristic of Thanos for us to hear him talk that way. And that's why it's so intriguing, because there's obviously a lot of influence here coming from the Marvel Cinematic Universe is being copied over into the comics, or I guess the comics copying over into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so again, picking up with Gamora killing Thanos, what we also find out here is it wasn't so clear cut, where she, well, no pun intended, but where she cut off his head, that Thanos actually began speaking to her telepathically. Now, this is ambiguous here, and we don't really know exactly how this falls. With Thanos sort of walking away from Mistress Death and really kind of leaving her behind, Thanos going his own way. What this basically meant was that it seems like Thanos may have been barred from the realm of Mistress Death. And if that's true, his essence may continue to live on. But historically speaking in Marvel Comics, when someone like take for example Deadpool is barred from the realm of the dead, or even when it comes to Thanos himself, who was banned from the realm of Mistress Death, they're simply just immortal. They just can't die. Their spiritual essence doesn't live on. Their physical body just can't be destroyed. It's impossible to kill them because there's nowhere for them to go. And so it's kind of crazy here because of course, Gamora responds by wiping out the rest of the Chitauri army, and that really kind of brings them to a close. And so it switches back over to where the last story left off when Gamora killed Star-Lord, when she killed Peter Quill. Now, of course, if you want to know what was going on there, check out the video down in the description. And of course, we also have the Infinity War playlist and so on. But where she goes to impale him, what we end up having is Doctor Strange invoking the Time Stone and stopping time. Now, this is kind of an intriguing move because of course, this is obviously, again, the Marvel cinematic universe being rolled in, and Doctor Strange basically saves Peter Quill. Now, of course, he doesn't heal him. That doesn't happen right off the bat. Instead, he just basically kind of saves him, and then from there, he actually goes through the process of healing him, as soon as all that's done. But it's intriguing here because not everyone knows how to react. And so what you end up having Doctor Strange basically doing is taking Turk Barrett and then whisking him off to another dimension. Now, what Doctor Strange is doing here is basically pitching a kind of a middle ground. And the reason why is, you remember, Turk got the Mind Stone, and what it allowed him to do was read the minds of stockbrokers and things like that, and start investing his money in a way that turned him into a man who was worth mountains and mountains of money, worth an absolute fortune. And so Doctor Strange's response is, we have to get the Infinity Stones off the planet Earth. If we have them all in a singular location, they'll be that much easier for Gamora to access. So we have to disperse them all across the cosmos and turn it into a hunt that would take her thousands of years to finally figure out. But remember, this is one of the things that I don't know if Jerry Dugan seems to forget, or if he just threw it in the story and Doctor Strange forgot. But remember, the Infinity Stones want to be brought together. We know that from Brian Michael Bendis' Illuminati run. We know it from Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers run. If you have one stone, it'll lead you to all the others because they want to be reunited. Remember, they all hail from a singular being that's constantly trying to reform itself. And where we would think that Gamora would still be basically a lost ball in high weeds trying to track these stones down, remember, she has the Power Stone in her sword. So she already has a kind of homing beacon for the rest of the Infinity Stones wherever they happen to be. The smartest decision by Doctor Strange would be to scatter them across different dimensions, to take them to different dimensions. Now, that may very well have been the plan, and it seems like the most likely thing, at least given Doctor Strange's power, because in that case, Gamora would never be able to find them, but neither would anybody else. It would literally be everyone relying on Stephen Strange to make the decision to reform the gems, and then presumably reform the Infinity Gauntlet if the crisis was bad enough. But again, it's pretty cool here. It's pretty intriguing because in the middle of this fight, this continually going on between the Guardians of the Galaxy and this sort of hodgepodge of Earth superheroes and the various villains who were there, we end up having Iron Man who arrives on the scene. Now again, this is coming down with the big guns. This is when the big guys are stepping in and saying, look, this has gone on long enough. In this kind of a situation, we've basically been dealing with small fries for the most part. I mean, you got Doctor Strange, who's not really a small fry, but for the most part, it's really, small fries through everything else. And this, of course, leads into Thor showing up to meet with Peter Quill, to meet with Star-Lord. Carol Danvers makes her arrival as well. But this is kind of a cool thing, and I like how Jerry Dugan does this, is he doesn't really pull any punches with the character of Gamora. And the reason why is because she's extremely capable. I mean, she got superhuman strength and speed and durability and all those different things. And while she's not necessarily a pound-for-pound match for Carol Danvers, or at least it doesn't really seem like she would be, Dugan really kind of amps her powers up a little bit and actually says, yes, she is. Now, of course, this also comes by way of her wielding the Power Stone, and that gives her kind of a boost to the energy that she had before. Remember, the Power Stone is basically raw power given form. So energy projection, superhuman strength, anything that involves a power-based element, it would allow a person to amplify their abilities multiple times over. What Dugan also seems to do is sort of limit it in scope, because the Infinity Stones are not finite stones. The Infinity Stones are literally infinite, and so wielding the Power Stone gives you infinite power. Punching Carol Danvers, knocking her unconscious, it seems pretty straightforward. This, of course, leads to Thor throwing his hammer, Captain America throwing his shield, and everyone's looking to try to face off against Gamora and take her out. Now, this is actually a genius moment here. It's one of the coolest moments of the story, and Jerry Dugan really kind of pulls a rabbit out of his hat here. The way this goes down is you end up having Carol Danvers grabbing Gamora and whisking her into space. Now, Carol Danvers, depending on the story, depending on the circumstance, she can tap into her binary powers occasionally, and it'll allow her to breathe in space and different things like that. When she flies Gamora up into the air, it presumably knocks her out because the oxygen is so thin, and the result is that she basically brings her back down. But notice this, it's so cool because you end up having Doctor Strange who goes to bind Gamora, and that's basically the end of that. And of course, she's basically tied up. But then she starts tapping in Morse code, and Captain America immediately picks up on this, and that's when he realizes that they've basically switched. It's actually Carol Danvers who's laying on the ground, and it's Gamora who's essentially, appearing as Carol Danvers. And the reason why is because Gamora has the Reality Stone. This is one of the coolest uses of the Reality Stone in Marvel Comics history, because you never really see it used on a small scale. You never really see someone distort reality in such a way to make them appear to be someone else. And when Gamora realizes that Captain America, understands what's going on, she simply says, I really didn't want it to happen this way. All you had to do was play along, not ask any questions. From there, Gamora single-handedly dismantles the entirety of the Avengers team. She takes them apart piece by piece. And this is really kind of like a love letter to the Gamora fans, saying, hey, look, she's just as dangerous as you think she is, even though she's kind of, you know, fallen back to the wayside after the events of like Annihilation Conquest, even though she hasn't really been relevant for what's essentially like 12 years. She's really been more of like a background character, a supporting character. She still is incredibly dangerous, and she still is incredibly capable in terms of her abilities. And it's cool to see, because you end up having Adam Warlock, whose head is cut off because Gamora knows that he'll just continually fight over and over and over again. Black Widow, who jumps in, you end up having like Black Panther, who shows up, and then she just freezes time and she stops everything and just says like, everything is done. And then of course, you know, you end up having Thanos, who appears to her for a moment. And so what she does is she basically, you know, once she gets the Soul Stone from Adam Warlock, she opens a portal to Soul World. Now again, this is interesting here, because this is again, Jerry Dugan really hitting at the idea and creating a story by simply saying that Gamora wasn't really as free as she thought, as we thought she was. Now again, he's also shifting up the nature of the Soul Stone, in the sense that what he seems to be doing here is saying that unlike years past where you had Soul World inside the Soul Stone, and Soul World was universal, meaning everybody saw the same thing, they could interact with each other, it'd be like walking around the city of New York. Instead, the interior of the Soul Stone seems to be relative to the person who's in it, and so nobody can interact with anybody else because they're in their own individual version of Soul World. And that's probably what you'll end up seeing basically with the events of Infinity War. What you're going to end up having here is what amounts to like Marvel Generations combined with like the events of Soul World, and then like the Ribbon or the Nexus or whatever it was from Star Trek Generations, that terrible movie. You're going to have this scenario where like you have everybody who died in Infinity War, they're going to be in their own individual Soul World, most likely, and they may not want to leave. They may think it's like actually an absolute reality. So again, it's kind of cool, and it's kind of intriguing because it leaves almost unlimited possibilities. But when Gamora goes to merge with herself, her response is, now I'm going to use the Infinity Stones, I'm going to bring them together, and I'm going to use them for a singular purpose, at which point Loki appears and says, actually, I have a much better idea on how these things can be used effectively. But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.